Welcome to Change It Up Radio here with Paula Shaw. I am so delighted about the show we are doing today, and I'm so happy that you're here to hear this show because I'm doing something that's very, very special to me, and I hope it will be special to you. I get to interview my dad, Jack Gutman, 2 days before his 95th birthday. And that's a pretty big deal, folks, isn't it? I I am so excited that he is not only living, but he is lucid, he is active, he's as sharp as a tack, and he has 95 years of being on this planet to share with us today. So, in just a few minutes, we will be talking to my dad, Jack Gutman, 2 days before his 95th birthday. So, just backing up for a second, welcome to Change It Up Radio. Those of you who follow us know that we are all about change. We're either trying to help people deal with change more smoothly and more productively by giving them great information, or we are spotlighting change makers, people who are trying to make the world a better place. And we love giving a spotlight to people who are working in that direction. So, one thing I would like to be sure I mentioned is that, well, most of you know, I'm your host, Paula Shaw. I am an author, a speaker, and a life transition coach. I work primarily with the tools of energy psychology in my practice so that people can move much more rapidly through their issues and through the emotional problems that they are having, much more rapidly than they can with just talk therapy. We work with the energy of the body, the biofield, the meridians, the chakras, and we move that energy so that people can go forward, can up level their lives and be more successful and more happy much more quickly than has been available before in just traditional therapy. If you'd like to learn more about my work, please go to paulashaw.com. That's paulashaw.com. And by the way, go there and be sure you grab the free gift that I'm offering, which is 20 things. It's a PDF, 20 things to say and 20 things not to say when you're having conversations with people who are dealing with difficult times. And let's face it, guys, today, isn't that pretty much all of us? So be sure you're armed, especially for the holidays. Find out specifically what to say and what not to say to create the most productive healing conversations. That's on paulashaw.com. And if you'd like to learn more about this radio show or learn about being a sponsor or a guest of this show, you can do that by going to changeitupradio.com. That's changeitupradio.com. All right, now without any further ado, I want to move to what's really important today, and that is hearing from my dad, Jack Gutman, 2 days before his 95th birthday. So I am really looking forward to what he's going to share with us. So without any further ado, Dad, welcome. Please join me.
Well, thank you so much, Paula, for giving me an opportunity a couple of days before my 95th birthday and 7 days before Christmas to kind of express what 95 years has gone by and what it's meant to me.
Yeah. And I think it's a good idea, you know, as Mary Martin said in Sound of Music, let's start at the very beginning. So let's talk a little bit, Dad, about the early years, where you grew up and what that was like.
Well, I came from a family of 9 children. My father had to work pretty hard to feed and take care of the 9 children. We were poor. it was a very difficult time. And we went through, we made many sacrifices that we got used to. And as we're ending or getting close to Christmas, I just have to think about a situation that happened to us on near Christmas time. It was about Christmas Eve, and this is prevalent, especially right now, is that we were, as I said, poor. My father went out to get a tree on Christmas Eve. They gave it free at that time because people had already bought their trees. And he brought it home, and we were decorating the best we can. We knew we were not going to have any presents or anything. As far as turkey or meat or something like that, it was out of the question. We hadn't seen meat in our house in many, many months because of the being poor. Well, the knock comes on the door, and we open up the door, and I get emotional every time I think about this. There was a woman, well dressed, with a chauffeur standing there with a big basket of food and presents. And we said, "What is this?" My father asked this, and they said, "We have some presents for you and food." And they had turkey and food, all the trimmings you want, and presents for every one of the 9 children. I'll tell you, this was amazing. She was like an angel in heaven to us.
And how did she find you? How did she know?
Well, the thing is this, it turned out, we found out that my brother Martin was looking in a window and at a toy store, and the woman was in back of him and said, "I'll bet you're going to get a lot of presents." And he said, "No, we're poor." So she found out in a wonderful way the names and everything about the ages of the kids. And she went out and bought presents, brought that food, found our address. She was like an angel from heaven. And I'll tell you one thing, that was one of the best Christmases that we ever had. We had turkey and everything. I never, ever forgot it. And here I am, going to be 95 in a few days, and I still remember that. And when I was doing better as I grew older after the war, I remembered that, and I asked my children or told them the story about that. And I said, how about, I had a family I knew that had a couple of girls and a boy. And I had my son, Craig, he was smaller, about 5. And my daughters and Paula and Leslie were a few years older. They wound up taking a toy of theirs, because I said, let's go there and give them something as a gift. So my wife and I, we went there and we were going to give a check and we were with them. My daughters gave a doll, one of the best dolls they had. And it was just wonderful that they were willing to sacrifice that. And then my son, Craig, I had bought him a robot that actually walked.
I remember this, yeah.
And he loved that robot. And I said to him, Craig, what do you want to do? Give one of your trucks? And he said, no, I want to give that boy my robot. And I said, Craig, that's a very expensive robot. And he says, I know, but I've had it and I've enjoyed it. And I think that boy would have it. And here at his age, he sacrificed that. Mm-hmm. But when we all went and saw the faces of those people, it was gratifying. And you know, I have a friend named Don Meredith that we told this story to.
Yes.
He now does that same thing for some people because he calls it the Jack Gutman Christmas.
Yes, he does. And he told me just yesterday to be sure and tell you that he will be doing the Jack Gutman Christmas every year as long as he's living. He still thinks that is so important. And I still can't hear the story without feeling teary myself. And I tell you, one of my most vivid memories from childhood is that Christmas when we went and gave that family the toys and some food. And things to have themselves a better Christmas. And what a beautiful story, and what a beautiful inspiration for anybody out there who's thinking, it's COVID, it's not going to be a great Christmas. Maybe find a family that you can give something to, whether it's food, whether it's gifts, maybe it's both. I mean, because Don Meredith tells the story every year that the best part of his Christmas is doing his Jack Gutman Christmas. So I think that's a beautiful story, Daddy, and so perfect to be sharing right now.
And I salute my good friend Don Meredith for doing that. And I hope I can touch other lives that they will do the same thing, because there's so many people out there that need it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we are going to have to go to a break in just a moment, Dad. But when we come back, let's talk a little bit about those teenage years of yours in New York and then going to Normandy, because I think that's a very huge part of your story. This is a man who lived through growing up in the gangs of New York, the Normandy Invasion, and very recently, only 2 months ago, a stroke. So when we come back, we will hear more from Jack Gutman about just how he did all of that. We'll be right back. Okay, Dad, if you're ready, we'll just keep going.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Grab a sip. Okay. Welcome back to Change It Up Radio, here with Paula Shaw. I am having the time of my life today because I get to interview my dad 2 days before his 95th birthday. If you're just joining us, you missed a very, very touching first segment where he talked about his childhood growing up very poor in New York City. And an angel of mercy, a wealthy woman who somehow found out about the family and showed up on Christmas Eve one year and blessed them all with gifts and food. So, Dad, let's just slide right from there to your teenage years were pretty tough in New York City, right?
Yes, definitely. It was sort of what we call survival. You had a gang, you joined a gang for protection and survival. There were lots of different gangs. Our gang turned out was called the Panthers. And we worked out a deal one time where we would have, so we would be recognized. We had a little lottery thing where we get money, say at 10 cents a piece or something, and we could get jackets. And we had beautiful silver jackets with the name Panthers on it and our name on it. And when you're poor, that was quite a pride, wonderful thing to have. And so that was us. And the gang fights got pretty rough. We'd be down in Central Park with a group, and the next thing you know, you're surrounded by another gang, and there was fights and all. Now, the guns, we didn't have to worry too much about guns then because they had the Sullivan Law. And that was if you were caught with a gun, it was 10 years in jail. They don't have it anymore.
I wish they did.
Yeah.
I definitely wish they did.
Yeah.
So, Dad, you had, obviously you had some tough going and you survived it there in New York City. But I think it's really important for our listeners that at 17 and a half, you talked your father into signing the papers so you could enlist in the Navy because World War II had just broken out. Tell us about that.
Yes, the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor. And at that time, I was near 16 or something. And I wanted to go get in the service, but I was too young then. But at 17, my father really, wouldn't let me go in. 17 and a half, I kept talking to him, and because guys in my gang were going into the service too, because we felt that we needed to protect our country.
Mm-hmm.
And we really believed that. So I talked to my father and I said to him, I can get got money, I'll get money each month, and 3 meals a day. I'll have a nice bed to sleep in. I'll go in the Navy. And so he finally relinquished and signed for me. And at 17 and a half, I joined the Navy. I went through my boot training, went through, I was going to be an aerial, training for aerial radio man. And then they were killing off the corpsmen in the Pacific a lot because they came in with red crosses on their helmets and shoulders. And they figured to kill the morale by killing the medics. And that was a problem that was not supposed to be done. So anyway, from where I passed radio and a machine gunner and radio man, they took me out of there and sent me to medical school. And I wound up being a corpsman, what they call a corpsman. And we went
So you were a medical corpsman. It wasn't medical school, it was medical training, correct?
Yeah, it was medical. Yes, I'm sorry. Thanks for correct. Yeah, it was medical training, and it was an accelerated course. It was a year course that I think we did it in about 7, 8, or 9 months total. And we accelerated, no days off. Yes, we had Sunday, which we had to study. And we learned all kinds of things, how to help in operations, feel, how to take care of wounded people, splints, all the things you need in battle. And then after that, I wound up going to England and to set up some hospital there in England called Netley, England. And we were there at least 4 to 5 months preparing for that. And before that, we went to Ireland and Scotland and picked up supplies and nurses and extra people like technicians.
Medical techs and stuff, yeah. And
So
but did you know what this was all about, what they were preparing for?
No, they told us that we're setting this up for something big, but we didn't know what it was going to be. Everything was hush hush.
I see.
So that's what it was.
And so how did it finally happen that you got your orders to be there on D-Day in the invasion of Normandy?
Okay. While we were in this Netley thing, there was a group, they got a hold of, I think, 30, 40 guys or whatever it was. And I happened to be one of them. They call volunteers. In other words, it's you. And so they took us and trained us secretly over in Southampton somewhere. And turned out because it was right across the river there. And they said to us,
you mean across the ocean from Normandy?
Oh, no, it's just right. It was like, Netley is like almost like a huge lake or whatever it is.
Oh, I see.
Across to Southampton, which is whatever the base was there. They taught us how to climb down ropes from the ships. They taught us how to hit the beaches and all these things. And they swore us. They said that it's a hush hush thing. Do not tell even your shipmates what you're doing or anything. Just tell them you're on leave and you bet you were on leave and so forth. And we were threatened by either you'd be shot or court-martialed. And when you're 18 years of age, I was 18 by that time, and you're scared. And so I never even told any of my shipmates or anything. And I went a long time without even telling anyone. But come the time before, it was a few days before, they took us off and they said, you're on 3 or 4 days leaves and you'll be back. But they didn't say what it was. And we were wound up on a ship. The Normandy Invasion, it turned out, was supposed to be on the June 5th.
Right.
And it turned out to be but the waters were so rough and all, and we got on, early on the 4th, and we were heading out there, and the invasion was supposed to start the 5th. Well, the water was so rough that they canceled that, and then Eisenhower and the generals made a decision to make the invasion on the 6th. Well, our job was just to take care of the wounded that was going to be on the beach and evacuate them. Mm-hmm. We were to go in about 3 hours later. So for us, it was going to be a cakewalk, we thought, because there was so much there. Like I've mentioned it many times before, there was over 5,000 ships, 4,500 Higgins boats, 11,000 planes involved in this battle, and 150,000 American, Canadian, and English troops that were going to make the invasion.
So, Dad, if I understand correctly, what you're saying is there were men who went to who hit the beach before you, and you just kind of thought you were going to go in there, sweep up the wounded, patch them up, and then get them back to the ship, correct?
That is exactly right. And so we figured going in about 3 hours later, everything would be fairly secure. Right. Because when we saw the things hitting the beach and all, but unfortunately, when the planes went to try to knock out those bunkers, it turned out that they missed because of cloud cover. They dropped the bombs 1 mile away from the bunkers, and those poor guys were left to be slaughtered, getting off those ramps.
Because in those bunkers were big German guns, right?
Yes, mm-hmm. And they had these machine guns, by the way, that would shoot off 150 bullets a minute. I mean, it was awful, just awful.
So basically, these guys are sitting ducks as they're landing on the beach. The Germans are just mowing them down with the big guns, correct?
Right. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I often wondered, I asked the guys that I was taking care of the wounded on the beach, which all I was expecting is just to evacuate them, but I had to take care of a lot of wounded. And I asked, why was so many bodies in the water when we came in? Because there were barriers and mines on these poles and everything. And there were body parts in the water on the beach. It was horrible. Mm-hmm. Something I didn't expect, not for an 18-year-old mind.
No.
And I asked, why was all the bodies in the water? And they said when the machine guns were going off and the ramps went down and the guys were being mowed down, guys jumped off the side. And with the heavy packs that they had on, the water was so deep, if they couldn't get the packs off, they drowned right there.
Because the boats couldn't get all the way to the shore.
Yes, because
so the water was deep. I get it. All right, Dad, we're going to have to go to a break in just a minute here. But when we come back, we'll pick up right here and then move into what happened in your life after going through this. We will be right back. Okay. If you're ready, Dad, let's just keep going.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Welcome back to Change It Up Radio with Paula Shaw. I am in the midst of probably my favorite interview of all time today. I'm interviewing my dad, Jack Gutman, 2 days before his 95th birthday. So if you're just joining us, you really are going to need to go back and hear the beginning of this show, because we've talked about Dad's childhood in New York City, growing up as one of 9 children in a very, very financially challenged situation, and then being one of the first to hit the beach at Normandy. And we are just talking about Normandy right now. And so, Dad, we know that chances of a successful invasion actually looked pretty slim at that moment, as these German guns are mowing guys down as they're hitting the beach. And yet somehow the Allies were victorious that day. Tell us a little bit about that. And then let's move into talking about what your life was like dealing with PTSD after going through this trauma of seeing bodies in the water and bodies all over the beach, and having the responsibility as an 18-year-old young man to patch these guys up, to try to save them so that they could get to medical ships and be helped by doctors.
Right. Well, actually, I was on the beach for Normandy for a little over 6 hours with taking care of the wounded and some of the hearing the tragic stories and hearing the guys screaming and all. But anyway, we finally evacuated a lot of them and took them back to our there's various hospitals in England, because there was a lot of hospitals, but ours was set up for, and we were taking a bunch of woundeds on the LSTs and the where they could put a lot of wounded on. Mm-hmm. And of course, some guys died on the way over. It was really tragic. And when I finally got to England and we took them back to our hospital, I was there for a little over a month or so before, just taking care of the wounded. Had a lot of tragic things happen there with the various things. I don't want to go into so much detail about all of that. It was just sad, especially I was put into officers' quarters, and there was one guy, the young officer, had a child and a wife at home. And I got very friendly with him, taking care of him. But then he was losing spinal fluid, and he wound up good. I knew the doctor said he won't make it. He wanted to go home, and he died on my watch and everything. It was just tragic to see young people. He was just maybe a year or so older than me. Anyway, from England to, I got home for a leave. It was 15 or 30 days they gave me leave. And I thought I would get a hospital in the States because I've already been in this invasion. Mm-hmm. It turned out I got sent to California and in Oceanside. As a matter of fact, it's interesting because that's where you live now.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was one-way highway and all at that time, and across from the Marine base and all. And we were attached to what we call the Beach Battalion. And so I was sent there. We went through training, and it was just one of those situations where at that time everything was, I trained with the Marines, because we're their medical group. Mm-hmm. See, Navy is the Navy corpsmen are their medical people, and they watch over us. Anyway, I trained with them. My first day trained with them, I passed out in the hot sun. Those Marines are tough. I thought I was tough and all, but not then. And so it was just one of those crazy things. I was finally after training there, and they taught us how to more climbing down the ropes, just like we did in Normandy, and then hitting the beaches and everything. We finally wound up. We were on a ship called the Gutman, and we were heading for Pearl Harbor. And the next thing you know, I was finally at the Pearl Harbor. For a while, I was transferred over to another ship called the Buoy, and we made the invasion of Okinawa after that.
So this is really unusual that a soldier would have been sent on two missions like that: the big invasion in Europe and now the invasion in the South Pacific, correct?
Yes. It was, of course, at that time, I mean, I'm almost like 19 then, coming to 19. And again, here we see all of these. Now, Okinawa, it wasn't on the battles on the beaches were not as hard as it was inland, but there was many, many casualties. We lost 14,000 men that died in that total Okinawa battle, maybe not in that invasion, but the total battle, 62,000 wounded. It was horrible. We saw how hard the Japanese fought. And so here I am, 19, and I have in the background with Normandy. But we took back wounded after that. And we in Okinawa, we were faced with the kamikaze planes. That's young pilots who had these planes with a huge bomb that would go right into a ship. And I had the opportunity, not an opportunity, it was tragic. I'm on deck after working on wounded. I'm on deck and all of a sudden the guns go off and we got the first kamikaze attack that we had. And I saw this one plane, I personally saw it as a picture in my book about it, one veteran's journey to heal the wounds of war. I have a picture of it, of the battleship New Mexico, where this kamikaze plane came in between my ship, the buoy, and the battleship New Mexico, and went right into bridge and blew up. It was a huge explosion. I stood there petrified. I couldn't understand this because there's a man that gave up his life. And I'm not used to that. I'm used to healing.
Yes. And you were standing in such a position that you actually could see this young pilot fly by you, right?
Yeah, he came in low and you could see the staunch look, and then he turned the plane in right into the bridge. He killed 80 people, including the captain. That's how devastating it was.
So, Dad, I'm
hard on me.
At that point in time, had you begun experiencing any kind of PTSD symptoms? Because you've already been through Normandy, which had to be really traumatic. Do you remember if you were experiencing anything by then?
Yes, even in my when we were going to in Oceanside, when we were going through training and all, I would have these flashbacks, but we thought it was like what they call battle fatigue. And I did not want to tell anyone what I was feeling or seeing because I had, in training, I had worked in a mental ward for a few weeks, and it scared the heck out of me. And I said, if I tell people what I'm feeling, they'll put me in a mental institution. And you know, when you're 18, 19 years of age, you don't want to go through anything like that. So you become an actor almost. You hide a lot of facts. And that was probably very bad for me because I was not able to tell anyone, not even my close friends, like I will tell you later or whatever it is, of a good friend of mine, Jerry Ackerman and Joe Gagliardi. We were good buddies in Oceanside. And yet it turned out that when I ran into him, by the way, even recently, 76 years later, he said, you never said anything. And I said, you have to be like an actor. And I didn't want to tell anyone because I'm still living with the thing that they said, you could be court-martialed or shot. No one ever rescinded that order. So, you know, you keep your mouth shut. So that's the way it was. So the whole thing was post-traumatic stress was coming in and getting worse all the time.
Yes. And it was predominant. I mean, interesting you use the word, you have to be like an actor, because after the war, you did go into show business. You became a comedian and you used humor to hide your feelings and your fears, correct?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, after I got discharged, and by the way, right after Okinawa, we were making the invasion of Japan, and we were going to hit naval base Sasebo, Japan, and then they dropped the atomic bomb and it ended. So then when I got discharged, instead of going through depression and everything else, I said to myself, you've got to get over this thing. So let's, like you said, acting, what was a perfect thing. My uncle got me in the show business. The next thing I know, I could be a comedian. I had a good memory for jokes, and I could do dialects and everything. And so I got into show business. At that time, people were making $50 a week. And my first paycheck was in show business was with my uncle and all that, $250 a week. And then it went up to $500 a week, $750. And then a couple of times I was $1,000 a week, which was
life-changing, I'm sure.
It was really amazing.
Dad, we got to take a little break right now. Unfortunately, this time is racing by. We'll be right back and we'll go on with that story.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back to Change It Up Radio with Paula Shaw. I'm interviewing my dad today on 2 days before his 95th birthday, and we have been sharing some very exciting stories about so much that happened in his life. And boy, the time is racing by. Here we are in our last segment already, and it feels like we just started. But Dad, we were just getting to the part where you were in 2 invasions. You were in the Normandy Invasion and Okinawa. And then after that, you went into show business. You were working as a comedian and making some pretty snappy money, as you were just saying. For a young kid, you were doing well. And you were getting to tell jokes, which is something, and all of us who know, you love to do to this day. So one would think life was pretty good, but what was going on inside?
Yeah, well, actually, I became like a Secret Service agent. In other words, I became like 2 personalities. Mm-hmm. The comedian, which was my cover for my problem with my flashbacks and everything. Even after when I got married, I just want to quickly go back and mention how I met her in school, and then we finally got married. We ran off and got married, and then we had you and my daughter Leslie and my son Craig, and we had 2 others that we lost. But we had a family, and I had to change my attitude, and so I became that different person. So that's like the different personalities. But by the way, my wife and I, 25 years later, we wound up remarrying again in church because we ran off and got married. And
on her 18th birthday, I might add.
Right, and yeah, we got married on her birthday, or 18th birthday, and my 21st. Anyway, you on our 25th anniversary, you were the maid of honor at our wedding. Leslie sang at the wedding, and my son was my best man. I even created my own wedding party. And it was just so wonderful. That was a wonderful memory we had.
That was a wonderful day.
But I'll tell you, getting back to the PTSD, it became so bad that I finally had to do a lot of different things. I was doing crazy things, drinking a whole lot, doing so many things. It's all in my book that I wrote. And
Daddy, let me stop you right there, because I did forget when I was introducing you to say that Dad is also, he's an author and a speaker himself. And he has written a book that's available on Amazon called One Veteran's Journey to Heal the Wounds of War.
Right.
And there's much more detail about this life story that we're discussing right now in that book.
Right.
Be sure you check that out.
Right. Well, as I said, I was drinking a whole lot and doing crazy things. And then the book explains a whole lot of things, and so many people go through different things with PTSD. Mine, as I say, was heavy drinking. I was doing crazy things, giving money to people when they would have problems, and not replacing it myself, and almost went broke. It was a whole crazy thing that I was going into.
For
my downfall.
66 years. right, Dad?
Yes, that's right. Thank you for that. 66 years. Can you imagine that? How you could hide things? I became like an actor for 66 years. But I took goals when I was in different businesses, sales, I was auto, manager at Thrifty Drugstore, all these things. I became uh, set goals and achieved them so I could just keep not flashback on my PTSD, which I did not know anything about. And it turned out that my downfall was on Thanksgiving. I'm with my family. I'm sitting and drinking a lot of wine because I bring a gallon of wine and a magnum of champagne, and I wanted to have enough for myself. And when they brought the food at Thanksgiving in front of my whole family, my face went into the plate. And it was so embarrassing. And I know when I found out, I cried. And they said, you need help. And you, Paula, helped me by getting me into your grief recovery thing, where you've found some roots. Then I went into the veterans because of you, and which I wasn't going to do, which I did. I went to the veterans and went through 3 years of therapy. Mm-hmm. And when I came out, which I was going to cancel the first day, but I figured I got to do something. And I tell you, veterans there, please get help. I came out very, very, I didn't want to really stay in the therapy. Once I did it and came out of it, I'm like a new man. You can get help and you become, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, life can really change. And I'm, because we're short on time, Dad, I want to give you the opportunity to tell some of the other things that you wanted to share. So I'm going to just tell our listeners that it's a fascinating story, what Dad went through. He did work in my grief recovery group, and then he worked with Dylan Bender, a therapist at the VA, who really helped him. And he came out truly a changed man. And then his life became all about being of service, trying to help other people, encouraging other veterans with PTSD to seek help, which he still does to this day. And I know, Dad, you've had the opportunity, and I know it's your most important thing in life right now to reach out and touch lives, to try to help people. And yes, there are two stories I know you'd like to share, and we're short on time. So maybe tell us briefly about the woman who you helped at Walmart, I think it was. And then tell us about your friend, Jerry.
Okay. Well, it turned out when I was 88 years old of age, I needed a job and things were rough for me because I was doing crazy things. This is all while I'm going through therapy. And I kept saying, God, just reach out and help me touch lives or something. Well, I'm at a cashier and there's people come by and I was trying to tell them about how things can be better and all. And a woman comes by and she's pregnant and she starts telling me all about it. And there was no lies or nothing. So she's telling me everything about it. And I said, I'm going to be taking a break in a few minutes. If you want to wait, I'll talk with you. And so we talked. I helped her a great deal, prayed with her and did everything I could. About a year later, because I injured my back at Walmart, and they were very good to me, by the way, on that. And I'm doing a show, and this woman, I'm hearing a woman just before I'm ready to go on to do a show on an outside deal and on a lawn. And this woman says, Jack, and I said, do I know you? And she goes, didn't you work at Walmart a year ago? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, I was pregnant that time, and there she is sitting with this beautiful baby boy, blue-eyed, and her husband. And she said, and you helped me a great deal. And her husband said, is this the Jack you keep talking about? And she said, yeah. And he says, thank you for my wife. And she says, see this blue-eyed baby boy? I said, yeah. She says, I named them Jack after you. Well, I almost wound up crying, you know, it was
that's
touching.
a beautiful story.
Then just lately, 76 years later.
And Daddy, before you tell this story, I'd like to preface it by saying not even 2 months ago, on October 28th, Dad had a stroke this year. And I guess once you've lived through Normandy and Okinawa and God knows what else, the gangs of New York, you're just too tough to take out with something as minor, sort of minor as a stroke. But Dad received a special drug that they call the clot-buster. And even though he could not speak at the time of the stroke, an hour later, he was able to speak. And I can tell you that 4 days after his stroke, he was walking through Costco and Walmart with me. This is one tough guy.
Yeah.
And now the bonus that he got to experience recently is the story that he's about to tell you about Jerry. So go ahead and tell him, Dad.
Well, remember I mentioned that I was in Oceanside, California after Normandy, and before we went to Okinawa. You have buddies that were all corpsmen. There was a guy named Jerry Ackerman, and then Joe Gagliardi and myself. We were called the 3 J's. We were buddies. We used to laugh, do crazy things. And even Jerry used to say, all of a sudden, we got on the same ship, and then we each went our own ways. Somehow Jerry got put on another deal, whatever it was. And we missed him, and Joe also. And the next thing I know, 76 years later, just not too long ago, I get a call from Jerry's son, Peter, and he says, were you ever in Pacific, Oceanside, or not Oceanside, but in the Pacific? And I said, well, I was in California and all that. That's what he wanted. And I said, yes, in Oceanside. And he said, did you know a guy named Jerry Ackerman? And I said, yeah. He said, that's my father. He's been trying to reach you for years. You were one of his favorite friends. Well, I got to talk to Jerry. He's doing fine. I met his family. I tell you, it was like the past coming back. And I had a picture of him on my wall with the other guy, with the whole group there. And I look at him, he was a good looking dude, you know.
Do you want to hold up that picture, Dad? Do you want to hold that picture up just to give everybody an idea of, or do you not have it? That's okay if you don't have it.
I don't have it handy, but it was
we'll put it in the show notes.
And all of us, here we are, 18, 19 years of age, and there's the 3 J's with all the other group. And to be able to talk to Jerry and his family, and we're going to be able to do a lot more things afterwards. I tell you, God is good. And so it's like the past coming back, and it was so nice. And I tell you, I have, coming up to 95 in a few days, I'm very grateful to my family of what they've meant to me and how we've been loving. I thank a good friend of mine, Dylan Bender, who was my therapist from the veterans, who stayed with me through all the crap that I put him through. And I thank so many people for my life. And I hope God gives me a year or so or whatever more he wants to give me. But whatever I'll do, I'll be touching lives and doing what I can. I went back to Normandy last year, touched a lot of lives there. And that's what I want to do from here on in. So I may be able to help you or talk to you, and then you can help me. Paula, you have helped me, and I thank you so much.
Oh, Dad, this has just been an absolute joy getting to share these stories with you, share your life. You know, I adore you, and I am so glad you're my dad. And for those of you out there who would like to learn more about Dad, as I said, his book, One Veteran's Journey to Heal the Wounds of War, is available on Amazon. And Dad, how can they get that documentary, the documentary that was made about your group that went back to Normandy for the anniversary?
Yeah, well, it's all you have to do is contact, call and go to Google and go Let Freedom Ring. And the owner of that took all of us to Normandy is George Ciampa, Ciampa, George Ciampa. He took us to Normandy. God bless that man. He changed my life by taking and having me go there. And you can get the documentary, which
there's a link.
12 days.
Yes, it's on YouTube. So
Yeah.
I want to just thank you, Dad. This was great fun, really a wonderful chance to relive a lot of wonderful memories with you. And I'm so glad I will be with you on your 95th birthday, cooking you a special dinner. And I love you. And I want to thank all my listeners for being with us on this very, very special show. Remember, you can hear us in San Diego at 9 o'clock on Sunday evenings on AM 1170 and 96.1 FM. And on every major podcast platform, including Podopolo, the newest and the greatest new podcast platform. So thank you all. Happy, happy holidays to everybody. And we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Okay. Bye-bye for now.
Take care. God bless you.